I should say the things have changed in some ways.
Who is the determinant of the public interest?
The more time people spend in digital worlds, the more of our lives we live there.
Intercoin, bringing power to the people. Now let's talk about the type of startup that you might want to look at. I've already talked about a startup that has a user-friendly interface, targets specifically community leaders that are able to bring a lot of people into the super connectors, and then empowers these super connectors to go from being a simple decision maker of a single person to essentially creating an organization around themselves where they are in charge on their own. They're the king of their own domain. You give them their own app and their own domain. You can help turn any startup into this type of thing and then get PR and everything else. You're essentially a co-founder, if you will, okay? And you can get a lot of money over the next several years. Now, again, you have to make sure that the product exists. You have to make sure that people are willing to pay for it. You have to insert yourself in the sales process and spend your own money, but that money that you're spending can actually help the business start to grow exponentially. And at that point, you can hand it over to the venture capital, the private equity firms, and even banks that you can also have partners to finance alongside you. So let's talk about what other elements can help you to guarantee that your investment doesn't suffer the kinds of things that people historically have been burned by. Things like, for example, printing more shares and diluting your ownership down to whatever through other rounds, down rounds, and things like that. Normally in the past, people had to rely on legal systems and jurisdictions that are reliable, like the United States, for specifically the state of Delaware for startups, or Singapore and stuff like that, and Asia and so on. Those jurisdictions and legal systems gave investors what at the time was the best they could hope for, which is legal recourse in case something goes wrong. They can go and bring suit in a court, which is typically user friendly to investors and corporate business. However, today with Web3, we could do better. We could have smart contracts almost absolutely guarantee practically that certain conditions would be enforced and certain risks would be eliminated. What kind of risks are we talking about? Well, there's a wide variety of risks that can now be guaranteed pretty much to be eliminated using smart contracts that are currently running on blockchains like Ethereum. One thing you can guarantee is that these smart contracts will execute exactly the code that they are written to execute. Now, you might think that was the case the whole time. As you were using Web2, you were relying on Facebook, for example, to enforce your privacy settings. You were relying on Facebook to show your tweets or show your posts to your friends. You're relying on Twitter to surface your tweets. Of course, if you see, most of these platforms don't necessarily do what you want them to do. They might deplatform you. They might not promote your tweets. They might show tweets of other people more than yours and so on. And so already, even large organizations, let alone the small ones, would be frustrated to know that, they're not doing what I want, but this is the only thing that exists, so I have to use them and I have to pay them money to advertise, and that's how they made money. But with smart contracts, anyone can deploy essentially a smart contract. And that allows anyone to build a business and collect money globally. So there was a time before the web when people had to rely on radio stations and TV stations and newspapers and magazines to get their message out. We're talking about content that they wanted the world to see. But they didn't have that kind of wide circulation. Even if they got in a newspaper, the circulation was local. If they got into a radio show, only one thing could play at a time. And so not only that, but it would only reach a local audience because the radio waves would not be syndicated around the whole world. But with the advent of the internet, new protocols started to emerge. Open, permissionless protocols that allowed people to essentially take advantage of what was previously available only to people who owned closed networks. Protocols like email allowed people to send messages around the world, not just in their local university, but to universities halfway around the globe. Similarly, the web on an open protocol called HTTP started to reach anyone with a web browser. If you fast forward to today, every device that consumers buy, whether it's a computer or a phone, has a web browser built into it. So the web browser has become a ubiquitous platform that's the most widely deployed thing. And HTTP, an open protocol, has allowed companies like Facebook, Amazon, and Google to be formed and to serve essentially so many people that they became the largest stocks on the stock market, the most highly capitalized stocks. So, of course, you could see the patterns here. You could see that technology helps to create efficiencies. And now with AI, that could become even more exacerbated. One Facebook engineer is needed to essentially serve 1 million customers. So these companies become more efficient over time. Tech is great, but the efficiencies created by the Web3 smart contracts allow you and investors at large to trust their money to these smart contracts. Like to be the first to hear about Intercoin's roadmap and news? Definitely join and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to click that little notification button so you can get updates when the next video drops and the next time we interview a legend like Noam Chomsky or Patrick Friedman. And if you would like to participate in the conversation, go to community.intercoin.app. We'd love to hear from you and about your community. This is what the project is all about. Intercoin, bringing power to the people.